Natalie, welcome to the Lessons of a Lashpreneur show. Thanks so much for coming on. Why don't you tell everybody who you are and where you're from?
So I'm Natalie. I'm 30 years old and I'm from Shropshire in the UK. So I've been lashing for predominantly about 7 years, but I've been a beauty therapist for the last 13. So I work from home. I have 2 children. I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old. The life's really busy, but working from home is ace. I'm super part-time. But yeah, I have fab clients, love what I do.
Beautiful. So initially our kind of conversation, I think, started in comments and really just like, is building a team the next step? Just really that curiosity around what is next when you want to stop maybe trading your time for money or not being so appointment based, or maybe you're starting to have, physical symptoms that you don't know how much longer you can be a solo artist or be a lash artist. Can you kind of tell me what phase you're at that you're looking at? What is the long-term view of your business or what's next?
Yeah, I think for me, ideally, UK, our retirement age is about 60, I think it's about 67. And I know that there's absolutely no way at 67 years old, I'm going to want to be service-based. So I know I'm sort of 37 years off this, but what's the point in having a business in my eyes and working so hard, gaining all of these clients, if effectively in 10 years' time, if you're not fit enough to do this role, what's the point of all this hard work? So I think really my plan was always that I would stop service-based appointment at the time I was 40. So I'm looking at sort of the next 9 years. Actually, I know deep down that I would like to stop service-based appointments within the next 3 to 5 years. I work from home. I've got a lovely setup. It's not that it's easy, but it works really well around my children. I'm here for them. My clients I live in a rural setting, so they love coming out of sort of town, and it's a very pretty area where I live. So you're not in the hustle and bustle of a town. Do I want to take on a team? Do I really want to take on a team? I was sort of referencing one of your podcasts, and you were sort of saying, all the reasons why you should take on a team. And actually, are you doing it for the right reasons? So it's just, I just don't know whether I would be hiring a team based off the fact, getting at that premises, hiring a team based off the fact that I could retire early, or not even retire, but I could come away from the service side of it.
Yeah.
So I think really,
so many questions.
I mean, what do you do if you're solo? What are your options?
Yeah, there's so many good questions to ask yourself in this. And what I don't think most people recognize first when they go out on their own as a business owner is that it's very different than being a service provider, right? And so there's a lot of that learning curve in how do I even run a business? But the reality is for most solo artists and solo service providers is that you're not actually creating a business, you're creating a job for yourself. Because the business does not exist if you are not in the business doing all the things. You're wearing all the hat. Therefore, it is a very people dependent business. And when you go away, so does the business and the incomes, to your point, right? And so it's really more so a job you created. So you're trading your time and your clients are paying you. And so, yes, we can call it a business because there's accounting and there's processes and there's marketing and there's client management and services being provided. So technically, yes, it is a business and we pay taxes and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is when we're looking at true business, a business should be able to live without the owner having to do everything. Now, most small businesses don't, right? And you kind of got to build to that point, but it's not really something that's a sellable asset that stands on its own, because what is there to sell when you are everything? You can't sell yourself. That's not legal in most countries. So it's like, what do you do to create this asset is what I'm going to keep calling it, because it is a revenue producer, but without you, it doesn't produce revenue. And so that is the question to ask of like, what is the long term? Can this be something that I'm investing my time in now so that I can get more time back in the future? Right. And what does that look like? Because it may not look where it's just that business model. So in some cases, So for me, the Lashpreneur is very much a personal brand. So I am the face of the company. It is my company. I am immersed in it. And so if we take Tara out of it, yes, there are a lot of assets that will stand on its own, but will it have the same success and scale without me involved in it? So I don't know that the business as it stands now is super valuable long-term. Yes, my time is no longer being traded for money, but it's a similar thing where without the person that's driving it, the owner, does it exist? So you can look at it as your business currently is funding other things that you can invest in that can produce revenue that are more maybe passive or not tied to you trading time for money. So for one example, it could be, you had mentioned retirement. So it could be that you are maximizing the sales so that you can pour more money into retirement. It could be that you're maximizing the sales from your business and that's into investment properties or Airbnbs that generate revenue and income. It could be that you're doing that to fund a different business or be an investor in another business. So we could use the current business model and not have to scale it out and involve other people where it runs without us, but that we're just trying to pump out enough cash from it because it's successful and we can manage the money and get a lot of money out of it to invest in other things that allow you more wealth and more stability in finances. Or we could build that business out to the point of maybe we sell it at some point because it's not so dependent on you, or build out a team where you're not trading your time for money and you're just taking profit distributions. So with all of those different options of how to look at what you're spending your time doing to build out a longer term wealth strategy, if you will, it really becomes of like what lights you up, what excites you, what do you feel called to do? Because if any of those things don't light you up, you're going to have a hard time pursuing it and building it out because you're just going to be like, this is not worth it. So out of all of those things, did anything come up for you in your head where you're like, oh, I actually kind of like that?
I'd never thought about being completely separate to the beauty sector. That just didn't even cross my mind. So that's really interesting. Because I think I've struggled with, because I feel like I've been in this sector for such a long time. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a long time really, but I have been wondering whether I just stop and I find something different. I think maybe I've lost my real love for it, and I've actually realized that the thing that I love is my clients professionally. I have amazing clients, and I genuinely I am really interested in their lives, and if I can even just sitting and listening to them, if that helps them, then that selfishly makes me feel really good. So I think I like people. I know I like people generally most of the time.
Comes with an asterisk.
Yeah. But really, I think for me, I know that I can't do this that much longer appointment based. I'm sort of nearing that time. I need to stop. I need to do something else.
So when you talked about you like people, you like your clients, you like listening to them, can you kind of tell me where that purpose is? Like, what is it about that lights you up, that makes you feel like that's a calling for you?
I think because they keep coming back and they keep talking to me, and they will say things, and I'm sure your listeners will be in the same sort of situation. They say, "Oh, I'm so glad I've got you," or "You're like my therapist," or "These sessions are like therapy sessions. I should be paying you double," or "Remember when I told you about X, Y, and Z? Well, because we spoke about it, I did this," or whatever. And you sort of think, "Oh my gosh." When that person leaves, you continue to maybe you have a tiny impact on their life, and then they come back and tell you about it. And I think that for me is, this comes to sort of another issue that I have, is that I love speaking to people. So then when it comes to the money side of it, at the end of the appointment, I'm like, right, okay, so that was so-and-so. I feel guilty because I enjoy talking to them. I almost feel like the service is sort of, oh, whatever, doesn't really matter how your lashes look as long as you're okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Money mindset stuff coming in of like, I shouldn't be charging for something I enjoy doing. I should only be charging for things that I just am miserable about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
Weird. You actually are where like 99% of people wish they were, that they enjoyed what they did so much and they got paid for it. And yet here you are almost like rejecting it and being resistant to it, of like, I enjoyed it too much. You shouldn't charge me for it. No, this was good for me. Something to deep dive on. So one thing, and I hear these a lot of people who have passions outside of their services, right? Or things that they enjoy outside of their services. And they think it has to be such a black and white conversation of like, well, I can't do this because I'm a lash artist, or, I'd have to shut this business down to start this other thing. And sometimes I'm like, our industry is still fairly new. And there's a lot that doesn't exist in our industry. So what if there was some opportunity to combine your love, the things that you are naturally gifted at, and in the industry that you're so well immersed in? So hi, I'm Lashpreneur. I'm a business coach, which is now a thing in our industry, but when I started, it certainly wasn't. And I took my knowledge of business and the success I'd had, and I turned it into, okay, well, I know how to talk to lash artists. And now I'm even moving into like more life coaching, which business coaching kind of evolves into life coaching. It kind of sounds like that's what you're doing with your clients. Is there an opportunity to either merge the two or use your knowledge and experience for one industry and start to do more of that? Because it probably doesn't exist right now. I don't know that there's life coaches specifically for lash artists or the lash industry, and especially probably not in England. And it might be just an opportunity to get curious about even coaching or mentoring others that are in business, or I don't know if, going into therapy and just finding a client base of just being a therapist and have nothing to do with the beauty industry. It's like, look at what you're already naturally gifted at and see if there's an opportunity for you to take what you've already built. Because maybe the whole reason you had a lash business for the last how many ever years was because you needed to find that you actually really enjoy mentoring people and talking with people and coaching them, or, being somewhat of a listening ear. And that's the path you need to go. So it's not wasted time. It's just you got clarity on really the direction you needed to go. So this served its purpose, and maybe now it's a different direction you take.
Yeah. Potentially. Yeah.
You're just switching the services that you offer. So let's just say it was therapy and you went and got whatever credentials you needed to. You already know how to build a service-based business. You've done it very successfully. You can still do that from your home. You could do it as Zoom, right? And so it's not that everything that you've done up to this point is just going to be thrown away. It's like, no, you were developing the skill set to then take this new thing. And maybe you built that out for 10 years. And then you decide, I actually am really into redesigning homes and being an interior designer. Now I'm going to build that business. And you're kind of like this multi-passionate entrepreneur because you have a skill set that can make you money in any different industry that you've learned over the past 10 years.
Yeah, I think you just sort of get not stuck, but you just sort of figure that this is what you've decided to do. And this is all I've ever known. Beauty's all I've ever known. So jumping to something completely different is sort of, what was the point? But I've got all this experience, and I guess, it's taking a different spin and thinking, well, what other qualities can you use this in, what other industry? So yeah, it's a really good point. Actually, my husband's a therapist, so he does Zooms and all sorts and works for charities and things. So yeah, it's something I've thought about, but never taken a jump, obviously, with it.
You guys could even partner together, right? And do like motivational tours and couples counseling and, have a podcast.
Now you're talking.
This is her first podcast. We're popping her podcast cherry, but coming soon next year, I think her and hubby are going to have their own podcast. Like, it's so easy to get in front of people, especially with the content that really works on the internal state, that there's so much opportunity to build something off of that if you wanted to. And I'm not to say that there isn't opportunities for growing and building the beauty side of things, but where I find most people, when they want to build out a team because they really want to be an educator and they want to like build out a team so they can walk away from the services and go do this other thing, I'm like, why wait? Go do the thing you want to do. Don't overcomplicate it. And in 3 to 5 years, I'm going to go be an educator, but in the meantime, I'm going to build out a team. It's like, go do the educator thing or the thing you want to do, and not wait for some miscellaneous timeline that you just made up that then is going to be when you're going to do whatever it is you're going to do. Start living life now. We don't have a whole lot of time on this earth. Go do what you're passionate about, And I think that's if we're looking at the grand picture, the grand scheme of your life, the time you've spent developing the skill set that allowed you access to women who needed you to have the conversation, not necessarily the results, is the value of what your business created for you. Is that it gave you access to practice those conversations and get really good at being an empathetic listener, for giving advice that was really helpful and valuable to them. Because in what other way, and especially, what other industry would you have had access to people being that vulnerable and sharing the way that they share with you?
Yeah, no. And I think when you have got somebody, their eyes are closed, they're right in front of you, for an hour, 2 hours, they just talk, don't you? They just, yeah, absolutely.
You
And it's
created a safe
lovely.
space. Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely. And no, I don't know. I don't know where else you would get that, really, without having to, pay for specifically that chat,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And then you would have had, I've thought about, so when I shut the business down a couple of years ago, I looked at getting my marriage and family therapist licensing, my master's in it. So I looked at becoming a therapist, but then I was like, to be honest with you, I don't really want to be regulated by some government agency. And I like teaching the business side too. So I'm just going to go into life coaching, which follows a lot of the same like skills and tools. And I don't have to go within just certain therapy modalities. I can branch outside of it, like going into breath work. And so it's just looking at what are the things you're good at that feel easy to you. And by your way of saying, when they pay me, I feel bad for it. Again, we can work on some money mindset stuff, but that to me is what you would do, whether you were paid well to do it or not. And that's really what your purpose and your calling is. When we don't have the resistance and something just comes easy to us, and there's fear about I'm trying to relate it to myself. There's fears around how big can I grow this, or how much impact can I have, or imposter syndrome and those kinds of things. But it is a skill set that you have that comes so naturally to you. And a lot of the way that we're conditioned in modern day society is that you should be miserable in your job. And those that really enjoy their job shouldn't be paid for it. And that starving artist mentality of if I'm providing values to others, how dare I charge for it? I should be giving out for free. People are suffering and there's children starving all over the world. And it's no. The way that I've shifted my money mindset around providing value to people is I say, the more income I make, the more impact I can have. And the more impact I can have, the more income I'll make. And that wins for everyone. Right? Because you are creating an impact. And they're paying for a service, not that service. So that's like a side bonus. But because you enjoy it is not the reason to shun money away. You should embrace and be abundant that wow, I'm really creating change in people's lives. And it's an energetic exchange that you are communicating things to them that is creating an impact, and they are paying you so that it can impact your life as well in a positive way.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. I don't even know if it's a British thing. We are a bit weird about money.
Oh, everybody is. It is. You guys probably have your own nuances to it. You guys charge nothing for lashes, and y'all spend 4 hours doing them. So there's probably some cultural stuff in there. What I've noticed, and you can tell me this about the Brits, is you don't have as many conversations around it. It's almost like a taboo thing to talk about, or feelings, or even mindset. It's just not as common, I think, as it is here in the US to talk about that kind of stuff. Is that somewhat true?
Talk about money.
Yeah.
It's just, you just don't. It's almost, I think, and if anyone's listening from the UK, and I've got this wrong, obviously they'll have to let you know, but I would say it's classed as rude. It's classed as being rude. It's classed as being nosy. You just wouldn't ask somebody what their salary is, or what their business is turning over. And I know, there's lots of coaches lots of coaches actually that are sort of popping up at the moment in the UK, and they'll say, the 6 figures or this and that and stuff, and it kind of without offending anybody, it's quite brash. I think, but I think it's a British thing, is we're oh, you kind of don't touch on how much, just as long as you're successful. So
Isn't that interesting, right? When we get curious, and some of that stuff happens here. I think we're a little more open about talking about 6 figures because it's a marketing scheme to get people in because they want that. And there is really, I would say, any reason to have a business is because of money. Otherwise, it's a hobby. And so to kind of turn an eye to it, or have any sort of shame or we need to not talk about it, or, oh my gosh, that was really in your face about money. I look at it more, and it's probably cultural too, but like, that's kind of almost generational trauma that keeps feeding the narrative that money is not something we should talk about, or that if somebody is successful, they've done it in an icky way, or it's just, they're showing off, or who do they think they are? And when we have those beliefs around money, guess what we're not going to get more of in our life? Money, because we think it is bad, we think it is evil, we think it is icky, we think it is to not be talked about and to hoard and to keep secret. And to the point of the income versus impact, if I'm having a great impact, I'm going to celebrate it, right? And people can have their beliefs about, maybe Tara's, bougie, or I don't know, whatever beliefs people have about me is none of my business, right? I have a great income. I have a growing income. I have plans to make way more money. I also know that when I make more money, I can also invest in my team and celebrate my team and have my team create more impact. And that is then going to create more money going into these businesses of the people that pay us to be our students. And so, especially when it comes to the money conversation, it's like, if I were afraid of money, I would not be a very good business owner. If I was not managing my numbers, I would not be a very good business owner, and I wouldn't be able to have more impact. Right. And when we stop looking at people's perception of us from the money standpoint, we really look at, what does money do in my life? Money really is, it's just paper, right? Or it's just numbers on a screen, but it can provide choice and safety and security. And so when we look at societally as a culture in Britain, if we've reframed, whenever anybody talks about money, of like, wow, do you want more safety and security in your life? Here's how to do it. Join my coaching program, right? It would be, it's perceived differently, right? But it's the same thing. It's just all of a sudden now we put money on it, the meaning somehow changes. But what that does is it provides people choice. And what I mean by that is, when you have money coming in that is more than affording your lifestyle, and you have money that will do more than cover the bills, a major financial setback to someone will just be a minor inconvenience to you, because you have money to throw at it, and it just solves the problem. So like, if your air conditioning goes out or your heater goes out, some people, they now have to suffer and not have heat or air conditioning. Whereas somebody who has money is like, cool, somebody came and fixed it. Like, it was just like a 20-minute thing. It was an inconvenience. So you get choice of not have, like, you get your bandwidth back. You also get safety and security, that whether there's a recession, whether there's a major financial hardship, whether there's a big bill that comes in, you're okay. And so you don't have to keep living in scarcity of waiting for the other shoe to drop, because money can support in creating that safety and security for people.
Yeah,
you can provide a great home for your
it
kids.
makes total sense.
Yeah.
And
I mean, how good of a therapist would you or your husband be if you guys were so scared about keeping the lights on because you couldn't pay the bill, and you were just waiting for the lights to go out and the electricity to go out because you hadn't been able to pay the bill? That's not very responsible either, right? Yeah.
No, definitely not.
So when you're thinking about the long term of, yes, retirement, but the 3 to 5 year plan, what questions are coming up for you, or what clarity are you having now?
I think I work on, I'd say I'm quite a sensitive person. So I have to be in something sort of emotionally, I think, for it to work. And I feel like in order to, stop my service-based appointments, I need to get that premises, I need to hire that team, or I need to, write some manuals. I need to start educating. I am teacher trained. I have been for, I think, the last 5 years, but I've done sort of mentorship in Lashes, no certificates. So I'm not accredited, but I can help people on a one-to-one basis, which I have done and I've really enjoyed. I'm I don't know which route I need to go down. And if I'm completely honest, I don't know if my heart is in either.
Right.
I don't know, because I think I just see it all the time. I know Instagram is, you see what you choose to see on Instagram, for example,
or what the algorithm chooses you to see.
But everybody that I see, they're solo. They get a salon, they get a team, they educate. and then they
The
maybe
Lash
release.
artist roadmap is what I call that. It's like, here's the
Yeah,
path.
yeah, and that's great because some people, they are smashing it. They're doing so well, and it's amazing. But I look at it and I think, oh, so that's my path. That's what I've got to do, And I think because my heart's not in that,
Mhm.
I haven't got the answer for you, Tara. I don't know.
So here's I'll kind of draw on some personal experience because I relate to that. Because when I became successful as a solo lash artist, it's like, okay, what's the next thing? Oh, hire a team. So I went through all of the process of getting job postings out there, interviewing people, and my heart wasn't in it. I was like, I don't want to tell grown adults to get off their phone, because that was my view of what building out a team was. I knew that I wanted to have another child, and I didn't want to keep trading my time for money. And so I knew there was something I had to create that wasn't appointment based or trading time for money. And so I had been listening to podcasts for about 2 years at that point that I didn't realize were actually grooming me for the next thing, which were online marketing podcasts. And so I was listening to these women entrepreneurs who had online business coaches, consultants, courses, those kinds of things, because I was trying to learn marketing. And they were teaching online marketing, which is a little bit different than having a brick and mortar building. But when it came to, well, what's next? I kind of looked at where I was already spending my time at that point of what made sense. And I was like, okay, well, I'm in the Facebook groups on these lash artist forums and whatnot, and I'm just answering questions on marketing. And people are starting to message me and going like, hey, I tested out that thing you said you do in your business and it worked really well. Thanks so much. Can I ask you another question? And so I remember talking with my friend who was an educator in the industry going like, I think I want to like start teaching business. Like nobody's really talking about it. I seem to have a different viewpoint on it. Like, let me just test it out. And that's kind of how the Lashpreneur started. Was I was already I had a business degree. I'd already had corporate experience. I liked the business conversations. I'd already hired a business coach and loved that experience of it. Not ever thinking I was going to be a business coach or what I am today. It was like, I just know my interest is here. The irony of all of this is that what I've spent the last 6 years doing is building out a team to help me do this business, right? So I was so resistant to building out a team for the brick and mortar, shop, but it was like, that's what I've become a really great expert in over the last 6 years, was building out teams. And so, but it's all within the context of business and creating that impact of like getting people their time back, right? And getting them a business that lives without their time being plugged into it. Cause that's the impact it's had in my life. Like, I'm in San Diego right now visiting family away from home because my mom was diagnosed with cancer last week. And so I wanted to be here. I didn't have to make that choice based on financial decisions of like, shoot, I'm not going to be in my business. My team took care of it. My team has handled the business the last week. And that's what I want, the option for people to have that choice, that if catastrophes aside, like if your kids have a school play or there's going to be a parade or it's like Easter hunting, like I want people to have, especially moms and women, to go have those choices, to not have to sacrifice being present in their families' lives over an appointment, right? And not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but I love that vision of like your business can thrive even without you. So to your point of having so many different options, the reason why you don't know which path to take is because you don't actually know the end goal that you're working towards. Right. And so when I knew I wanted to have another baby and I didn't want to be appointment based, that helped clear my path, that building out a team was going to take a long time. I was still going to be the main provider. I really wanted to go online. I wanted to be location independent. I wanted to have an online business. And so that made the path very clear. We start learning online business, online marketing, creating courses, being an educator, having a content plan, right? So my path became very clear and I just kept working the path. So if you looked at 3 to 5 years from now, what is the dream? Without knowing how to do it, if you just could pick a dream, what is that?
It would be,
don't hold back.
It would probably be managing, feeling like I've gone up a level in my business. So I think I'm quite comfortable. I'm comfortable with people, and I would like, I was just talking about not having a team, but that's what I can imagine. I can imagine me being a salon manager. I can imagine me being the owner of a salon.
And why does that excite you and light you up?
The women, I think, employing women, having some impact on their lives. So I think that brings me back to what I currently have now. That's what I love is
Yes.
I love being around women, you know, having those professional sort of relationships with them. And so I think actually, yeah, if I could support, help, yeah, and I think to watch people grow as well, and not feel responsible, but feel that you've had a part in that. That's what I think really deep down, that's what I would love. And so then if I tie that into the beauty industry, in my head, that's having a team and a salon and a premises and all that comes with it. Even though I don't want to sometimes go down that path, I think.
Well, we could talk about the objections and what thoughts are coming up that creates the resistance, but I'm going to blow your mind a little bit here.
Okay.
So yes, 100% I picked up on that when you were talking about your clients and the coaching that you're doing. Most of my time spent with my team is actually investing in them as humans and doing more coaching with them, or if they're trying to reach a goal or they're having issues with students or whatever, it's coaching them through how to be successful in their job, which is also a tool that helps them in their life as well. With my team specifically, I offer life coaching for them. So we have one-on-ones that are separate from anything having to do with business, where we're just talking through what's going through their life. And I'm teaching them or doing inner child work, the same thing I do with my clients, because it helps them to perform better and it helps them feel like I care about them. That's a great employee retention strategy. I know their lives. I know what obstacles come up, so I can really lead them. And when they're having struggles and whatnot, and you know, we have that almost personal relationship, like not friends, but because there's boundaries, but I can allow for them to take time off. We have processes in place that if somebody needs to step in and help them out, you know, I had a team member last summer who's really going through a tough time, and I was able to give her a month off to just focus. It was paid. Now, granted, she was overseas, so you know, it was more affordable, but she was a valuable team member. She'd already been with me 2 years. I didn't want to lose her. And if I can show her that you're just going to do coaching with me and you're going to take some time off and just focus on getting yourself to a good place, I know I've got loyalty for years from her now. Not that that's why I did it, but it's, you can pour into your team just like you already do for your clients, and you already have a skill set of doing that. So there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to do that with a team that you're then creating livelihood for them, right? You're creating income for them. You're creating a culture of an environment of a team that's really healthy, because when you're the leader and you're stepping into that leadership role, you kick the bad apples out, right, real quick. So that may not be, at least here in the US, employment opportunities are not abundant that are very good for employees. That's why we have such an abundance of solo salon suites, because the employment options are kind of crap. And so when we get people into our programs where we teach building out teams, we're doing it in such a different way that builds the team culture, gets the owner out of the treatment room, creates profitability in the business so we can pour back into our team, that the owner's not stressed about money and making decisions solely based off of money. And so it really creates great team environments where everybody wins, the clients, the business owner, and the team. A second layer to that, when you're talking about being an educator, what I don't think most people realize as an educator, especially in our industry, is that you will spend the majority of your time marketing, not actually teaching, because you have to get new students all the time. There's very little opportunity for most educators to increase customer lifetime value on one student. So you get one student to pay you, but they don't have any other trainings they can take with you. And so that customer is done. We have to go find a new one. So you're constantly marketing to make a decent living of these students coming in. Sure, they pay a high price for it, but in order to have a growing and stable income, you have to constantly be marketing. My company is an online marketing company more than coaching, more than anything else. The service we provide, sure, is coaching and all that, but a lot of my time is more spent marketing and building the team. So when you look at it from a team perspective, you're still doing the same education, except now you're not having to go find new team members all the time. You are investing in growing that team member and watching their growth. And the things and the tips and the tools that you're sharing with them, you actually get to benefit from that by way of them building a clientele, more sales coming in. You get to refine how you teach. You get to watch them have wins and success based on what you teach them. But when you have a student that maybe you work with for 2 days, you're not getting that feedback. Maybe a year from now, they'll be like, message you and say, that was amazing, thank you. But you're not getting that consistent investment into that student long-term like you do with a team.
Yeah, sure. Makes total sense.
I think building a team actually scratches a lot of those desires that you already have and those things that you've been thinking through. So I guess my follow-up and final question for you is, what resistance comes up for you where you're like, I don't know if I want a team? What is that thought that you're having that makes it seem heavy or hard or difficult?
It is probably me. What, me? I'm gonna manage a team. Really? How's that gonna work? I think that's
Why not
my
you?
I think being in a room super part-time by yourself in your home, it the only way to stay connected in the industry, not with clients now, in the industry, is to be on social media, which is something I'm not great at because I don't give it the time. I don't have the time.
Is it
So
not, is it that you're not good at it or you just haven't learned how to use it?
I don't think I've learned how to use it properly. It's
So
something
how
that
can
I
you
need to,
know if you're good or bad at it when you've never learned how to do it?
yeah.
We want to jump to shaming ourselves. I'm not good with numbers. I'm not good with money. And it's like, you just haven't learned how to use it.
Mm, yeah,
Right? When a
no,
baby's learning to walk, do they just get up and start walking and running and, getting in marathons? They
yeah.
fall a lot. They have to develop the muscles to be able to hold themselves up and put weight on one thing. That's what you're doing. And maybe social media is the way to do that, and maybe not, right? We don't have to do what everybody else is doing. In fact, I would say most people in our beauty industry have no idea what they're doing. It's the blind leading the blind. So us looking at somebody else's template of success may not be applicable to us, right?
Mm,
Somebody who loves social media, who's very successful at it because they love it, right? May not be the path that you take because you don't like being on there. We can also
mm,
talk about the meaning that we place on social media. Like, I'm not on there for personal reasons. I'm on there for business. And that's where I connect with my audience and I serve them. And I love going on it to have the DMs. Anything that I have to have very clear boundaries with social media, because if I start going on social media and I hate it, I can't connect with my customers. I can't be seen by the customers where they're spending time. That's not good. That's not effective for the business. So I have to have very
mm,
clear boundaries around it, of making sure I'm not feeding my brain things that, following whoever, or if I feel like my competitors are getting ahead of me, or all those toxic ways we expose ourselves to social media, use it for the tool that it is.
mm.
So
Yeah,
when it comes to you being I don't know if the listeners picked up on this, but earlier she was like, I could see myself managing a team. And then here we are, is like, who am I to manage a team? You're the person in your head that you
yeah,
see managing a team. I think what you're noticing is the gap between where you're at now and that vision you have in your head.
yeah. Whoa, huge. It feels huge. You know,
Okay,
I'm just in my house.
here's a little mindset trick for you. When it comes to making the next decision in your business, put that girl, that future vision of yourself in your head. Let her make the decisions. Don't let Natalie of today make the decisions. Let Natalie of the future make the decisions. So in this moment, if you can envision yourself as her, envision yourself walking into whatever salon it is, maybe it doesn't exist, maybe it's at home, I don't know if that's your vision. Imagine yourself walking in and you have 5 tables full of clients that are just loving it. They're getting their therapy with their lash artists that you have trained. Close your eyes and let me know when you've got that vision in your head that you're walking into this space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Describe for me the aesthetics of the room.
Clean, cut, neat, white lights, bright. Almost you don't know that it's a beauty salon. It just looks refreshing.
Yeah. And what is it you're hearing when you walk in?
Um, I don't know if I can hear, but I can just see. I just feel like I can see lots of people smiling, lots of happy, positive feeling. That's the usual
And how does
thing.
that make you
Yeah.
feel inside? What is the feeling you're having inside when you're in that vision?
Mm. That's it. That's what I want. That's I'm in the right place.
Alignment. I call that alignment in me. And where do you feel that in your body?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is your center where your decisions need to be made, when you have that place of peace, right? When it's
Mhm.
anywhere else, or we have kind of a shrinking feeling, that's more fear. When we have that open expansiveness, that is your intuition or your gut. So kind of be mindful of what your physical experience is. Fear is beliefs coming in that are distracting us. That peace, that expansion, that lightness, that's more of your gut, your intuition. So in that vision, with that Natalie in mind, what is the next step she needs to take present day to start moving towards that? Just one thing.
One thing would probably be premises.
Okay, there you go.
That'd be-
Don't overthink it.
Premises.
Next thing is starting to research what it would take and what it would look like to find a salon at whatever size or whatever financially makes sense to just get out of your home, is what it sounds like, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to make any other decisions other than we're going into research mode. What's that going to take? What's that going to cost? Maybe we need to start looking at some financials to see, how am I going to be able to afford that? Okay, maybe it's not in the next 6 months, but I can maybe add half a day in the week to start building out some more revenue that's just going to be set aside to put the deposit down or whatever, right? Right. And so you are welcome to do that visualization at any point to figure out what your next step is, because future you that's successful, that's vision in your head, is going to give you the path to get there. So you're not going to know how to get to that vision, right? That's the journey of discovery there you're on. Most people won't make the next step until they know the steps to get there. But if you think about it, do you guys use Google Maps over in the UK?
Yeah.
Okay. So think about it this way. It's a great metaphor. Google Maps. If you just tell Google Maps, I want to go eat at an Indian restaurant, it's not going to know how to tell you to get there, because it's going to give you a list of all the restaurants that you could go to. Which restaurant do you want? There's like 50 Indian restaurants within a 30 kilometer, whatever thing. And you have to pick which restaurant you want to go to in order to know the steps on how to get there. So that's what we did today, was getting you to visualize you walking into basically the Indian restaurant version of your dream or your goal. Right? Because when you're at home just trying to get to a restaurant, you're like, well, we could do Chinese, we could do Indian, we could do fish and chips, right? You had all these different options, so you didn't know how to get there. And you're like, do I take the highway? Do I take the subway? Do I go this way? Do I take a left? Do I take a right? It's like, I don't know, because we don't know where we're going yet. You got clear on where you're going now. And so now we can plug that address into the Google map of our brain, and our brain will start to give us the turn by turns. So what now is like, the next step is not you're at the restaurant. Now that I know the destination, I'm there. No, it's getting into your car or getting to the subway or leaving your house is the next step. You can't get to your car until you leave the house. So you need to leave the house. And then your next step will be getting in the car. Okay, what do I do when I get in the car? The map says I need to pull out of my driveway, go down the street and take a left. Okay, I'm going to go do that, right? And so your path will start to map itself out the more that you start going down the path. And there may be times when you get down the path and accident ahead, turn around, right? You kind of meet a roadblock, or I thought I needed to take a left, but things changed. I need to turn around. And there's no judgment on that, because you're better for having gone down the path rather than staying at home, hoping there's no change in the path. Right. And so it may not look exactly like you want it to look, but that's going to be, you're either going to get the result you want or the lesson you need, as long as you keep progressing and moving forward. We don't have to have fear about what it looks like, that we're going to fail, that it's not going to work out. The only way you fail is when you choose to stop and give up on it. And you are in control of whether you stop or not.
Stopping feels like failure. I don't want to stop, but I think,
well, then don't. You don't want to fail, don't stop. The only way you fail is you label something as failing. Right? We could say that this episode was a failure because we didn't actually talk about some of the retirement questions and all that stuff that you had. But that's why I said at the beginning, like we go wherever this takes us. And I don't label it as failure, because it still has value to it, because you're learning a whole lot. The people listening are like mind blown, right? And so it's serving its purpose, even though it didn't go exactly to plan. And that's most of life. We never know what's going to happen. We all went through a pandemic. Who saw that coming? And here we are, and we're figuring it out. And that's life. That's business. You're going to have more information. The further down the path you go, you're going to get better at making decisions, but you're always going to keep that successful Natalie in head and let her behind the wheel. Because current Natalie is going to want to put it in reverse. Current Natalie is going to be afraid to get in the car because, God, what happens 600 feet down the road? Like, I don't know. But future Natalie knows that success is inevitable, and that's going to happen. It may take 20 years. It may take 2 months. You don't know. But she is going to make that happen. And then you'll have a moment, maybe a year from now, maybe 3 years from now, you're going to be walking into that salon and it is going to be the weirdest, most spine chilling moment of like, this is the vision. It's like a deja vu experience of like, holy cow, I'm here. I've reached the Indian restaurant. And you're going to message me and you're going to be like, we had Indian food tonight to celebrate the opening.
Yeah. I'm clocking that. I'm gonna, yeah.
In fact, I will be there bringing Indian food in and making your beautiful space smell like curry. Awesome. So do you feel like you have a little bit more clarity now on the direction to take and what's ahead for you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing, isn't it, what a conversation can do? You just pinpoint just certain things that you don't pick up on, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was ace. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. That's the beauty of coaching, is like you get somebody else's perspective and you get out of your head, because we have a lot of limiting beliefs and a lot of subconscious programming that keeps us stuck. And this is where I really, over the past probably 3 years of my life, have really focused on mindsets to achieve and perform at a higher level, because I can get out of my head and get out of my way and keep progressing without putting a whole lot of meaning on it. Because all of those beliefs, they're meant to keep us safe, but it doesn't set us up to thrive. And I want to live a life that thrives. And so I kind of need to clear out some of that stuff. And that's basically what I walked you through today. Is like, get out of your head. Sure, you don't know the how-tos, and I don't either. Let's figure it out. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Well, hope that was valuable to you. Hit me up on Instagram through the DMs and let me know if you had any ahas like Natalie did today, so we can keep doing more of these episodes. Until next time, have a good one.